Rabbi David Goldstein walked through the sterile corridors of St. Mary's Hospital on this cold Tuesday evening in November. At 72 years old, he had been making these pastoral visits for over 30 years, offering comfort to patients and families regardless of their faith. His gentle manner and kind eyes had brought peace to countless souls during their darkest hours. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows on the polished floors as he made his way to the oncology ward, where Mrs. Chen awaited his weekly visit. She was Buddhist, but she had specifically requested the rabbi's presence. Faith, he had learned long ago, transcended religious boundaries when people faced mortality. His worn leather bag contained prayer books, small tokens of comfort, and most importantly, an open heart ready to listen. The hospital staff knew him well. Nurses would nod respectfully as he passed, and doctors would often seek his counsel for difficult family conversations. Rabbi Goldstein believed deeply that healing involved more than medicine. It required the human spirit to feel connected, valued, and tonight felt different somehow, though he couldn't explain why. Perhaps it was the unusual quiet in the halls, or maybe the way the evening light filtered through the windows with an almost ethereal quality. As he completed his rounds on the third floor, visiting patients who ranged from a young father with pneumonia to an elderly woman recovering from surgery, each encounter reminded him why this work mattered. These were not just medical cases. They were human beings facing fear, pain, and uncertainty. His presence offered something that no medication could provide: the assurance that they were not alone in their struggle. Block 2. An unexpected discovery. After finishing his scheduled visits, Rabbi Goldstein decided to stop by the hospital chapel before heading home. The small interfaith space was usually empty at this hour, serving as a quiet refuge where he could reflect on the day's encounters and offer prayers for those he had met. The chapel was designed to accommodate all faiths. Simple wooden pews faced a modest altar area, with symbols from various religions displayed respectfully around the room. Soft lighting created an atmosphere of peace and contemplation. As he approached the chapel doors, he heard an unusual sound that made him pause. It was low, rhythmic breathing punctuated by occasional soft moans. His first thought was that someone might be in distress, perhaps grieving or in pain. Quietly pushing open the heavy wooden door, Rabbi Goldstein stepped inside and immediately understood what he was witnessing. A young woman, perhaps in her early 20s, was sitting in the back pew. Her body was tense with concentration, her hands gripping the wooden bench as she breathed through what were clearly labor contractions. She was completely alone. Her long brown hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she wore simple jeans and an oversized sweater that couldn't hide her advanced pregnancy. Sweat beaded on her forehead despite the cool temperature in the chapel. She hadn't noticed his entrance, completely focused on managing her pain through measured breathing. Rabbi Goldstein stood frozen for a moment, unsure whether to approach or retreat. This was clearly a private moment, yet every instinct told him that something was terribly wrong. No woman should be laboring alone in a chapel. Where was her family? Where was the medical staff? Block 3. A moment of decision. The young woman's breathing intensified and she gripped the pew tighter as another contraction washed over her. Rabbi Goldstein watched her struggle alone and felt his heart break. In all his years of ministry, he had encountered many difficult situations, but this scene touched something deep within him. Here was a vulnerable human being in one of life's most intense moments, with no one to offer support or comfort. He thought of his own daughter, Sarah, now a mother of 3, and how surrounded by love and care she had been during each of her labors. This young woman had none of that. Taking a quiet step forward, he cleared his throat gently. "Excuse me, dear. Are you all right?" The woman's head snapped up, startled. Her eyes were wide with a mixture of pain and fear. She was younger than he had initially thought, perhaps 19 or 20, with delicate features and intelligent green eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered, struggling to catch her breath. "I didn't mean to disturb anyone. I can leave." "Please, don't apologize," Rabbi Goldstein said softly, moving closer but maintaining a respectful distance. "I'm Rabbi Goldstein. I visit patients here. Are you in labor?" She nodded, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "I think so. The contractions started about 2 hours ago, but they're getting stronger." "Why are you here alone? Where is your family?" The question seemed to cause her more pain than the contractions. She looked down at her hands, which were trembling slightly. There is no family. At least, not anymore. Her voice was barely above a whisper. They told me I was dead to them when I decided to keep the baby. Rabbi Goldstein felt a surge of anger at whoever had abandoned this young woman, but he kept his voice calm and gentle. What's your name, dear? Block 4. Maria's story. Maria, she said quietly, then added, Maria Santos. Her accent carried hints of her Latino heritage, and Rabbi Goldstein noticed the small silver cross hanging around her neck. Another contraction hit, and she doubled over, gripping the pew with white knuckles. Rabbi Goldstein moved to sit beside her, offering his steady presence. Maria, have you been to the emergency room? You should be with doctors right now. When the contraction passed, she shook her head. I don't have insurance. I tried to go earlier, but they said since it wasn't an emergency yet, I'd have to wait hours, and I couldn't afford the bill anyway. I thought maybe I had more time. Her story began to unfold in fragments between contractions. She was 20 years old, had been studying nursing at the community college before her pregnancy forced her to drop out. The father of her baby had disappeared when she told him the news. Her deeply religious family had given her an ultimatum: terminate the pregnancy, or lose their support forever. She had chosen to keep her child, and true to their word, they had cut off all contact. I've been staying at a women's shelter, she explained, breathing heavily as another wave of pain approached. But I had to leave there today because they don't allow births on the premises. I was trying to figure out what to do when the pains got really bad. I remembered seeing this chapel during one of my prenatal visits, and I thought maybe I could pray for strength. She looked at Rabbi Goldstein with eyes full of exhaustion and fear. I know I'm not Jewish, but would it be wrong for you to pray with me? I don't think I can do this alone. Rabbi Goldstein felt tears prick his own eyes. Dear child, God doesn't care about our different labels when someone is in need. Block 5. An act of faith. Rabbi Goldstein gently placed his hand on Maria's shoulder. Maria, we need to get you to the maternity ward immediately. This baby is coming whether we're ready or not. Maria shook her head frantically. I can't afford it. I've already called every clinic and hospital. Without insurance, they want thousands of dollars up front. I tried to save money, but living on my own. Her voice trailed off as another contraction gripped her. Rabbi Goldstein made a decision that came from his heart rather than his head. Don't worry about the money right now. Let me help you. He stood up and walked to the chapel phone mounted on the wall. With shaking fingers, he dialed the maternity ward. This is Rabbi Goldstein. I have a young woman in the chapel who is in active labor. We need a wheelchair and a team down here immediately. When he hung up, Maria was staring at him with disbelief. Rabbi, I can't ask you to help with the money. You don't even know me. Maria, in my faith, we have a concept called pikwach nefesh, the saving of a human life. It overrides almost every other consideration. Right now, there are 2 lives that need saving, and money is just numbers on paper. He sat back down beside her, his weathered hand finding hers. Besides, sometimes strangers are just family we haven't met yet. Within minutes, the chapel doors burst open as 2 nurses arrived with a wheelchair. Maria looked terrified as they helped her from the pew. Rabbi, will you... she began, then stopped, embarrassed. Will I what, dear? Will you stay with me? I know it's a lot to ask, but I don't have anyone else. Rabbi Goldstein didn't hesitate. Of course I will. You're not alone anymore. Block 6. In the delivery room. The maternity ward exploded into controlled chaos as Maria was rushed into an examination room. Dr. Patricia Williams, the attending physician, quickly assessed the situation. She's at 8 centimeters, she announced to the nursing staff. This baby is coming soon. Rabbi Goldstein stayed close to Maria's side, holding her hand as medical professionals bustled around them. He had been present for many significant moments in people's lives, but never in a delivery room. The intensity and raw humanity of the experience moved him deeply. Maria squeezed his hand during each contraction, drawing strength from his steady presence. I'm scared, she whispered between waves of pain. What if I'm not good enough to be a mother? What if I can't do this? Fear is natural, Rabbi Goldstein replied softly. But look at what you've already done. You made the brave choice to bring this life into the world despite enormous pressure. You've survived on your own, worked to take care of yourself and your baby. That takes incredible strength. Dr. Williams approached them with a gentle smile. "Maria, you're doing beautifully. Rabbi, I have to ask, are you family?" Before Rabbi Goldstein could answer, Maria spoke up firmly. "Yes, he is. He's my family." The doctor nodded understandingly. She had seen many unconventional family situations in her years of practice. "In that case, Rabbi, would you like to stay for the delivery? We're very close now." Rabbi Goldstein looked at Maria, who nodded eagerly. "I would be honored," he said. As they moved Maria to the delivery room, Rabbi Goldstein found himself praying in Hebrew under his breath, ancient words of protection and blessing that his grandfather had taught him decades ago. Block 7. The Miracle of Birth. The delivery room hummed with quiet intensity as Maria entered the final stage of labor. Rabbi Goldstein remained at her side, amazed by the strength and determination this young woman displayed. Her face was flushed with exertion, but her eyes showed fierce concentration and love for the child she was about to meet. "You're doing wonderfully, Maria," Dr. Williams encouraged. "On the next contraction, I need you to push with everything you have." Rabbi Goldstein found himself swept up in the moment, his own eyes filling with tears as he witnessed the miracle of new life. He had officiated at countless ceremonies marking life's passages, baby namings, bar mitzvahs, weddings, funerals, but he had never been present at the actual moment of birth. The raw power and beauty of it overwhelmed him. "I can see the head," Dr. Williams announced excitedly. "One more big push, Maria." Maria gripped Rabbi Goldstein's hand so tightly he was sure she would break his fingers, but he didn't care. "You can do this," he whispered to her. "You're the strongest person I've ever met." With a final push and a cry that seemed to come from the depths of her soul, Maria brought her baby into the world. The delivery room filled with the sound every parent longs to hear. A healthy baby's first cry. "It's a girl, Dr. Williams announced, holding up the tiny, perfect infant. "She's beautiful." The baby was quickly cleaned and examined, then placed on Maria's chest. The young mother burst into tears, but they were tears of joy and relief. She looked down at her daughter with wonder and spoke her first words to her child. "Hello, little one. I'm your mama, and I love you so much." Rabbi Goldstein wiped his own eyes, profoundly moved by what he had witnessed. Block 8. Unexpected Bonds. As the medical team completed their work, Maria cradled her newborn daughter, who had quieted and was looking up at her mother with unfocused but alert eyes. The baby was perfect. Tiny fingers and toes, a dusting of dark hair, and the most beautiful olive skin. Rabbi Goldstein watched the new mother and child with wonder, feeling as if he had been privileged to witness something sacred. "Have you chosen a name?" he asked gently. Maria smiled, the first truly happy smile he had seen from her. "Hope. Her name is Hope." She looked up at Rabbi Goldstein with tears in her eyes. "Because that's what you gave me today when I had none left." A nurse approached with paperwork, including the birth certificate. When she reached the section for the father's name, Maria hesitated. "You can leave it blank if you prefer," the nurse said kindly. Maria looked at Rabbi Goldstein, then back at the form. Would it be appropriate to list you as her grandfather? Not legally, of course, but just..." She struggled to find the words. "You've been more family to me today than anyone has been in months." Rabbi Goldstein felt his throat tighten with emotion. "Maria, I would be deeply honored." Dr. Williams returned with the test results. "Both mother and baby are perfectly healthy. Maria, you did an amazing job. Hope weighs 6 pounds, 3 ounces, and she's absolutely perfect." She paused, looking between Maria and Rabbi Goldstein. "I have to ask about your plans for after discharge. Do you have somewhere safe to go with the baby?" Maria's face fell. The shelter had made it clear she couldn't return with a newborn, and she had no other options. Rabbi Goldstein saw her distress and made another spontaneous decision. "She'll come home with my wife and me until we can figure out something more permanent." Block 9. An Extended Family. 2 days later, Rabbi Goldstein helped Maria and baby Hope settle into the small guest room in his modest home. His wife Ruth, a retired teacher with a heart as big as her husband's, had immediately embraced the idea of helping the young mother. Their own children were grown and lived in different cities, and the house had felt too quiet for years. "You'll stay as long as you need to," Ruth assured Maria as she showed her around the house. We have plenty of room. And frankly, it will be wonderful to have a baby in the house again. The transformation in Maria over those first few days was remarkable. With proper rest, nutritious meals, and the support of her new surrogate family, she began to bloom. The fear and exhaustion that had marked her face in the chapel was replaced by the natural glow of new motherhood. Rabbi Goldstein found himself completely enchanted by baby Hope. During his morning prayers, he would hear her tiny sounds from the next room and find himself smiling. Ruth taught Maria infant care techniques she had learned from raising 3 children, and the 2 women developed a close bond. In the evenings, the household would gather in the living room, where Rabbi Goldstein would read to them from various spiritual texts, always emphasizing themes of love, family, and hope. Maria listened intently, finding comfort in the wisdom of different traditions. "I've never really understood how different faiths could coexist," she told him one evening as she fed Hope. "My family always said other religions were wrong." "Faith is like a mountain," Rabbi Goldstein replied thoughtfully. "There are many paths to the top, but the destination is the same, understanding our connection to something greater than ourselves and to each other." Word of their unusual living arrangement spread through the synagogue community, and rather than judgment, it was met with overwhelming support. Block 10. Community embraces. The congregation of Beth Shalom had known Rabbi Goldstein for decades, and his act of kindness toward Maria and Hope surprised no one. This was the man who had officiated at interfaith weddings when other rabbis refused, who had sat with dying patients regardless of their beliefs, who had fed homeless individuals from his own kitchen. Within a week of Hope's birth, the synagogue community had organized a baby shower for Maria. Jewish mothers arrived with gifts, advice, and warm embraces for the young woman who had captured their rabbi's heart. Sarah Goldstein Cohen, the rabbi's own daughter, drove down from San Francisco to meet Maria and Hope. "My father has always collected strays," she told Maria with a laugh. "But he's never brought home a baby before. You must be very special." The bond between Sarah and Maria was immediate. Sarah, a successful lawyer and mother of 3, saw something of herself in Maria's determination to build a life for her child despite overwhelming obstacles. "You know," Sarah said as she held Hope, "I could use some help with my law practice. I've been looking for someone to train as a paralegal. The work would mostly be remote, which means you could stay here with the baby." Maria's eyes widened. "But I only completed 1 year of nursing school. I don't know anything about law." "Neither did I when I started law school," Sarah laughed. "Besides, my father says you're one of the smartest people he's ever met. He's usually right about these things." Ruth Goldstein watched these connections forming with deep satisfaction. She had always believed that families were created by love and choice, not just biology. Seeing Maria integrate into their community, watching her confidence grow, and witnessing the joy that baby Hope brought to everyone around her, felt like a blessing beyond measure. Block 11. Growing bonds. As weeks turned into months, the arrangement that had begun as a temporary solution evolved into something much deeper. Maria thrived in her new environment, studying for her paralegal certification during Hope's naps and contributing to the household in countless ways. She cooked traditional Mexican dishes that soon became family favorites, and her gentle humor and grateful spirit endeared her to everyone she met. Baby Hope, now 3 months old, had become the center of the household's universe. She smiled readily, slept well, and seemed to bring joy to everyone who held her. Rabbi Goldstein, who had never had the experience of living with an infant as a grandfather, discovered unexpected depths of love and wonder in his relationship with the baby. "She's made me feel young again," he confided to Ruth one evening as they watched Maria playing with Hope on the living room. "I had forgotten how miraculous it is to watch a new person discover the world." Maria had begun attending Friday night Shabbat dinners at the synagogue, where she was warmly welcomed despite her Catholic background. She learned Hebrew blessings and traditions, not to convert, but to better understand the family that had adopted her. The rabbi's grandson, 16-year-old Josh, taught her to play chess during his visits, and she helped him with his Spanish homework. The synagogue community had fully embraced both Maria and Hope. Mrs. Bernstein, an elderly widow, had appointed herself as Hope's honorary grandmother and brought homemade baby food every week. The synagogue's young mothers included Maria in their playgroups and offered babysitting when she needed to study. Dr. Williams, Hope's pediatrician, often remarked on how unusually content and healthy the baby was. She's clearly being raised with tremendous love, she told Maria during a routine checkup. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. Block 12, full circle. 1 year after that November evening in the chapel, Rabbi Goldstein stood before his congregation delivering his Rosh Hashanah sermon. In the front row sat his extended family. Ruth, their children and grandchildren visiting for the holidays, and Maria holding 1-year-old Hope, who was now walking and babbling in both English and Hebrew phrases she'd picked up around the house. This year, Rabbi Goldstein began, I want to talk about the Hebrew concept of bashert, the idea that certain things are meant to be, that souls find each other when they're supposed to. 12 months ago, I thought I was making a routine visit to our hospital chapel. Instead, I found my family expanding in the most unexpected way. He looked directly at Maria, who wiped tears from her eyes. I learned that night that miracles don't always look like what we expect. Sometimes a miracle is simply being in the right place at the right time to help someone who needs it. Sometimes it's having the courage to trust a stranger with your most precious moments. And sometimes it's discovering that love doesn't require blood relations or shared history, just open hearts. Hope chose that moment to say Zayd, her version of grandfather in Yiddish, causing laughter to ripple through the congregation. Maria had completed her paralegal training and was now working full-time for Sarah's law firm, specializing in immigration and family law. She had her own apartment nearby but spent most evenings at the Goldsteins' house. Hope had 2 bedrooms, countless surrogate grandparents, and a family that spanned faiths and cultures. The Talmud teaches us that when you save one life, you save the entire world. Rabbi Goldstein concluded his sermon. That night in the chapel, I thought I was helping to save 2 lives. What I didn't realize was that Maria and Hope were saving mine as well, reminding me that our capacity for love is infinite, and that family is not defined by who we're born to, but by who we choose to love.